Hello everyone. Welcome back to our exciting journey into the world of machine learning and predictive modeling. In the previous videos, we discussed the primary objective of our project, which is to predict the bike sales at each hour. We also took a closer look at the data set we will going to work and examine some of the columns. And we also discuss and identify the target variable for this modeling. Now, we have established a solid foundation, understanding both the project's goal and the data we are dealing with it, but it's just the beginning. Now, in the coming videos, we will going to use ChatGPT. We're going to use and learn ChatGPT to build and evaluate our machine learning models. And at the same time, we're going to explore various techniques and the tools and strategy using ChatGPT to harness the power of AI for predicting modeling. So stay tuned for the coming videos and I will connect with you in the next one. Thank you. Welcome back to the next video, and this will going to be the most exciting video of this course because I know that you all are very interested to know how to use ChatGPT to build models. So without wasting any time, let's jump into our ChatGPT as well as our Python notebook and see how we can build that data analytical, data profiling, how to load data set and so on. So before we start using ChatGPT for building our models, so the way we typically take any help from any human being by providing them the context of the problem so that they can better assist us. Similar thing we will going to do with our ChatGPT as well. So before we ask for a ChatGPT to build model, before that we need to provide them like a business objective. We need to provide them a data set. We need to explain the data set as well. And then we need to tell them, what exactly we require from them. So let's jump into ChatGPT and see what are the details I'm providing for ChatGPT so that they can better understand our business goal. So the first thing what we will going to do is to provide the business objective of this work. So let me paste in this message on ChatGPT. So what I am doing is that I am telling the project objective, the objective of this project, that there is a rental bicycle company who wants to build a model which can predict the total sales for given hours based on certain inputs. So basically to build a regression algorithm to predict the total rental sales for the hour. So now we have cleared the project objective of this work. Now the next thing which we are going to do is to provide the data set or maybe the explanation of the data set. So let's go, and I am providing the details of the data set. So let me print it here. Now this is what I have given the data set. So I have mentioned that this data set has been aggregated at an hourly level, and below are their columns and their descriptions. Now as you know that we have around 10 to 12 columns: date, time column, season column, holiday, working day, weather, temp, humidity, wind speed and so on. And at the same time I have given a one line of description for each of the column. So like let's say for example for date time, the time of the day, which has date and hour of the day. For example, for the next one, the season, there can be 4 possible seasons which have been tagged from 1 to 4. As we saw during our dataset preview, that we can have like a 4 different type of seasons in a given year. Similarly, the weather, I have told them that there can be 4 possible weathers which have been mapped again or tagged from 1 to 4. So this is how I have provided the description and the explanation of the dataset so that ChatGPT should know what exactly the meaning of each of the column. Now the next step what we are going to do is to provide some sample data to them so that they can better understand what exactly or the expectations from the data it would be. So let me paste it here as well. Now I have pasted somewhere around like 100 rows, or maybe not 100, maybe like 50 rows, so that ChatGPT can understand some of the sample values, and then based on that it can assist better in doing our data profiling, data analysis and so on. Now finally I'm telling a ChatGPT what I am expecting from them. So what I have written is that please outline all the steps for predicting the or building the regression model. So basically I have provided all the basic details, the business context, sample values. Now I'm asking please outline all the steps which is typically required to build or predict a regression model. So let me hit enter. Now ChatGPT has providing us all the details about the outline. So let's go one by one what they have mentioned here. Now they're saying is that to build a regression model to predict the total sales for a company, it required this many steps. So as we can see, the step one is data pre-processing. So in the pre-processing, loading the data set, checking the missing values, then clean the data by handling missing values and outliers. Then the feature engineering part is to create new features if necessary. For example, you can extract the hour of the day from the daytime column, which makes a lot of sense, or do the one hot encoding of categorical columns like season, holiday, working day, and weather, which is again a very useful information, or a very when we have some of the categorical columns, we need to create all those kind of one hot encoding. Then it's asking to split into 80-20 for training the model. Then model selection, that it's suggesting what kind of a models we can use. Then train the model, evaluation, hyperparameter tuning, and deployment, monitoring, and so on. So let's go one by one. Let's pick first step is to load our data set into the data tool like Python. So let's say we need to now load our data set. So the way I will tell to ChatGPT, I am telling is that let's start with step one. Load the data set into Python notebook. And do some basic and provide some basic information about the data. Some basic information about the data. So now it has started writing the code about how to load the data, how to see some of the values, then df.info to provide some of the information about the data type and the missing values, how many missing values, and df.describe. So let me copy this code. Now I will switch into the Python notebook, paste all the code, and now I will run this command. So now before that I need to change it to its name, the CSV file what we have. So the name of the CSV file, let me go back, which is bike_rental. So let me type bike_rental, and now I will read this file. So I am keeping the variable name as URL, and then read the file by using this command. So let me cut these commands and put it in the next cell so that we will run each code line by line, and then we will understand its outputs. So let's load the data set first. So we have successfully load the data and store it in the data frame or a variable called df. Now let's print some of the sample values. So print df.head will print some of the first 5 rows. So we can see that it has successfully loaded our data, and we can see this value makes sense because this is the same values what we have in the CSV. Now let's run df.info so that we can see some of the basic information about the data. So we can see that these are the list of the columns, and D type are the data type right now. So we can see that date time is taking as object, which is string. So it's typically Python right now not reading this column date time as a timestamp column. It's basically reading more like a string column. So make sure that when we use this column, we have to convert into a string, into a timestamp column. And then we have like count, which is float values, and whether again it's taking as integer value, and so on. Now we can see, we know that it has not shown us the size of the data frame. So we can ask, can you write the command for data frame shape, so that we can see how many rows and columns what we have. So it has given this code. So let's copy the code, and let's run this command after this cell, and we can see we have 10886 rows, more than 10,000 rows, and we have 12 columns. Now since we know that total number of rows in this data set is this much, and we can see that holiday has 10884, means it has two rows which might have two missing values, so that's why it's showing 10884 compared to 10886. So it means there are two missing values in holiday. And similarly we can see even in the count we have three missing values. So make sure that when we start building this model, we have to replace or do something to overcome this kind of a missing values. So let's confirm from one of the function what we have in the pandas, which is to df.isNull.sum to get or print missing values. And as we know that there are two missing values in holidays and there are three missing values in count, so it has confirmed by this function. Now finally we will do some of the descriptive statistics, and we can see some of the descriptive statistics as well. So if I see the target variable, which is our count, I can see that mean value is 191, whereas the median value is 145. So we can see that there is a difference between median and mean value, so might be some skewedness in the target variable, and we can check based on the distribution. So the next step what we do is to do some kind of a distribution to understand to plot some histogram or box plot to understand about target variable. Do we really have this kind of a skewedness in the target variable or not? So what we will do, we will ask the ChatGPT that can you write the code for count variable to plot its distribution using, let's say, histogram. So it has written the code for us. So let's plot and confirm whether there is some skewedness or not in our target variable. So when I run this command, I can see that there is a right skewedness in the data set. What it means is that in a given hour, we have a lot of rows, something around like 3000 rows or a 3000 hours in a given data set, where our total sales happen between around, I guess, 0 to 50. If this particular bin width is 50, so we typically have lot of sales in a given hour, which has around 50 sales are happening in a given hour. But there are certain hours where we can see that we almost have like 900 sales or 800 rows, but their count of frequency is very less in a given hour. But mostly on an average, our sales are happening around on a median level 145. So around 50% of our sales have happened less than 145 in a given hour. But on an average in 1 hour we are expecting sales of about 191, but we can see some of the values can happen like 600 or 550, 500 as well. So we can see that there is a right skewedness in the data set. So when we do our kind of a feature transformation, so we will do some kind of an functionality to convert this distribution into a more bell-shaped curve. So let's move on to our next step. So let's go into the documentation of our ChatGPT and let's see what they are suggesting our next step. So we have explored our missing values and we found that there are two columns which has some missing values. Now let's clean the data by handling missing values. So we can suggest that we found two missing values. We found two columns, or rather we say we found two columns which has missing values, and the columns are count and holiday. So write the code to replace the values with some legitimate values. So write the code to replace missing values with some legit values. So we are not dropping the missing values. We will be replacing the missing value with some legit value. So let's see what what ChatGPT suggests us. For count values, for count column, it's suggesting to replace the missing values with the mean values. And for holiday column, since it's a categorical column which has 0 or 1s, it's suggesting us to use the mode functionality. So let's copy and replace those values. So this particular code is to replace the missing values in the count column. and then similarly to replace categorical column, which is holiday, we are using the mode function. So let's confirm whether we have removed the missing values or not. So we can use this code itself, and now we can see all the missing values have been replaced from our data set. Now we have cleaned up some of the data, we have do some kind of a profiling, but still we have not did some kind of a data exploration through visualization. So let's ask chat GPT to create some kind of a visualization graph, because I want to understand if there is any relationship between our target variable and some of the input columns. So we will ask chat GPT, let's create some visualizations between input columns, input columns and target and count column, to understand the relationship and the patterns, to understand the relationships and patterns. And let's see what ChatGPT suggests us. So it has suggested us a lot of different visualizations. So let's create one by one and see if we can find some good information. So the first thing, it's mentioning that to scatter plot for continuous variables like temperature, humidity and wind speed, we can create scatter plot to see how they correlate with count. So let's run this command, copy this command and run this command and see what we are getting here. So it's showing the relationship between temperature versus sales or count. So count is basically sales. So we can see that in this, we can see that, when the temperature is increasing up between after 10 degrees Celsius or 15 degrees Celsius till 35 degrees Celsius, we have seen some kind of increase in the number of sales, which is quite understandable, because people wants to ride their bike when the temperature is much more pleasant, as compared to when the temperature is very low, like 0 degree, 3 degree or 5 degree, or if the temperature is very high, which is very hot, like after 36 degree, 37 degree. So it shows that there is some kind of a relationship. Again, it's not a very linear relationship where you get the correlation value of 1, but I can see that there is some relationship with the temperature. Now let's move on to the next visualization, which is suggesting us the box plot. And let's copy this command and let's see what kind of a visualizations we get. So now it's showing me a box plot and showing me the relationship between sales or the count column versus the season. So we want to understand, is there is any kind of a relationship that in particular season we see a increase in sales as compared to some other seasons. So one thing we can see that season 1 we don't expect to have a very high number of sales, and this might be winter weather, and we saw in the previous that when the temperature is low, sales tends to get low. But when we see the season 2 and 3, which looks to be a more spring season or more pleasant weather, between probably temperature between 15 to 30 or 35, and we see a increase in the sales. And similarly, once we start moving into higher degrees or higher weather, this would be probably season 4, when we see sales again started going down compared to season 2 and season 3. So this shows that season also play an important role with respect to our sales. So let's see the bar plot. So let me copy this code and let's run this command to see what we are getting. Now it's showing me if there is any kind of a relationship between holiday and non-holiday. And we can see that between holiday and non-holiday, it's not showing me a lot of difference in the sales. We can see sales looks to be quite similar, although during non-holiday, which has a slightly increased bar, might have a little higher sales compared to non-holiday, but again it's not a very conclusive relationship. So let's move on to the next one and let's plot some time series. So let me copy this command. And when I run this command, I can see, so it's showing me the sales at a day level. And I can see that, sales are much more higher in the month from April onwards till October. And that's where again, it's very correlated with the weather and the season as well, that we see higher sales when when the months are from 04 till 10. So what I will do is that let's create some visualizations on the timestamp based on the time of the day as well, the time of the day, or maybe at the monthly level. So let's ask chat gpt create two similar time series uh, plots between hour of the day and count, as well as monthly trend with respect to count. So it has given us two codes. So let's create hourly time. So that would be much more interesting as well, if hour plays an important role and as well. So we can see that our sales get increased when the hour of the day, means this 6 to 8, which would be 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So might be a lot of working people are using, or maybe school students would be using. So that's why we have seen an increase in the sales, and then afterwards it starts going down. But then again in the evening, maybe after 4 p.m, 16 means 4 p.m, we again saw a increase in the sales till probably 5, and then again afterwards it starts going down, but still it has a very high frequency sales till 6 p.m or 6:30 p.m. Again, it might be a lot of working people are using to go back to their home. So we can see that hour of the day also play an important role. So one more analysis which I want to see, maybe at the, let's see again at the monthly level, and we can see, which we saw in from this graph as well, that when our months are start increasing after April, we have seen an increase in the sales till October, which is 10, which might again correlate because of the weather conditions. One thing which I want to see the visualization is to between holiday and working day and the non-working day. So let's see, create a graph between working day and total sales and count, I would say, and count. So let's copy it and let's see what we get. And this is what we are getting between non-working day and working day. We can see that working day has a slight higher sales compared to non-working day. Again, it's not very completely conclusive, so we cannot say that it's clear that working day has high sales compared to non-working day, because the charts looks very similar to each other, but still we can see that working day has a slightly increase in the sales count compared to the non-working day. So I think from the visualization perspective or the exploration perspective, this might be a, I think, good idea to get on about the data profiling. So let's go back on the top what ChatGPT has suggested, some of the other step, and see did ChatGPT has missed suggesting any of the step. So we have already cleaned up the handling missing values. We have already seen some of the exploration part. What next is suggesting is to go with the step 2, feature engineering.